Welcome back to Antigua Barbuda today. When global policies are written, who speaks for small island nations? This week, Britney McDonald, Director of Operations at Integrated Health Outreach, IHO, is answering that call. She's representing the Caribbean Civil Society at the United Nations in New York during the SIDS Civil Society Engagement Forum, continuing the momentum from last year's pivotal SIDS 4 conference held right here in Antigua and Barbuda. Let's explore how civil society is shaping the future for small island developing states and how island voices are making themselves heard on the world stage. Good morning, Britney.
Good morning, Chaneil.
And congratulations to you. This is huge.
Yes, the selection was great. There were many persons who would have applied, many organizations who would have applied. So we're really happy that we were able to continue the work that was started last year and also to represent the voices for everyone who would have arrived at the SIDS conference in Antigua and Barbuda last year, as well as for those who could not have made it.
Right. And you're heading to the UN as a key representative. How does it feel to carry the torch, carry the voices of Caribbean civil society on such a global platform?
So last week we had an amazing conversation, and thankfully there were other representatives from the Caribbean because we also have the French-speaking Caribbean, we also have the Spanish-speaking Caribbean, Dutch-speaking Caribbean, and so it was great that there was more representation, so it was a holistic perspective. It feels very important to ensure that we're transparent throughout the process. And so we would have published a document sharing the insights, sharing what we would be doing, the program of work, and how persons from civil society, from local communities could contribute. So that was a major component of the process for us.
And for those unfamiliar with SIDS 4 or the ABAS, the Antigua Barbuda Agenda for SIDS, why was that conference and its outcomes so significant for small island nations?
Yes. So when we look at the holistic perspective of other countries versus us as small island developing states, we go through different things, right? We're entirely engulfed by water for the most part, and we also have the coastal erosion, we have our coral bleaching, we have decimation of our fish populations and other species that need protecting. So environment is a huge component of it. But we also look at the issues that are facing our vulnerable populations because they also reside on the coastal areas, and even if you don't live on the coast, because our islands are so small, it still impacts you at a disproportionate rate than if you're living in a landlocked country or a larger, more industrialized country like the United States or Canada. These places, they have access to more resources, more people, so that they would be able to make change at a different rate than we would. And so we're very dependent on what's happening in these spheres of the world. And us coming together from the Caribbean region, from the Atlantic and Indian Ocean region, as well as the Pacific region, and speaking about our issues as well as going with the civil society roadmap and action plan, which was created to support the implementation of the Antigua and Barbuda Agenda for SIDS. This is what is helping to channel these continued conversations and dialogues into tangible action.
Yes, and tangible action is important. Many times we have a lot of conferences and meetings, and there's a lot of talk, there's a lot of decisions made, but we don't get to see that action actually happening.
Yes, and this forum was part of that process. We advocated for civil society to continue being a key development partner in the process. And so having this engagement forum where we're able to have these working groups that spoke about various topics such as local to global community action, funding resources, as well as how we could have partnerships with the private sector as well as the government sector. These are the ways that we're able to provide these inputs to these larger macro processes that can then make changes that we can see on the ground level here, and we'll be able to report back as well.
Amazing. And you've been coordinating across regions and collecting community input. What have been some of the recurring themes or concerns you've heard at like a grassroots level?
Yes, so I think one of the main parts that transcends regions is our ability to create inputs into these processes, into these policy frameworks, and for the understanding that happens at the community level. So how does the average person understand access to water, access to renewable energy, being able to participate in ensuring that the human rights of all are acknowledged and are enforced in these governmental processes, and being able to participate. So that's one of the key areas that is transcended, as well as access to resource mobilization, right? So civil society, we're often volunteering, we're often writing grants and these proposals, and so we've requested support from our local governments so that we would be able to have more tangible inputs into the local community and champion for this change. With these types of changes, we're able to have better partnerships, support government policies, support communities in their response to these policies, and ensure that we're having implementation that creates a secure future for us.
And how important is it that local voices, not just government, play a central role in shaping sustainable developing strategies, especially for small island states?
Right. So climate change is happening to us, right? It's happening to us in many different ways. And sometimes we maybe don't have the technical jargon, so to speak, to put it into words. So I love to use the example of us having access to resources, because that's what we feel on a day-to-day basis. You're seeing maybe the price of a good that you would buy in the supermarket go up continually. That is a consequence of supply chain dynamics that are somewhat out of our control. And so at the same time, us as the local community having consultations, sharing into these documents is so important, because we're hearing from you, and more importantly, these processes, these intergovernmental agencies like CARICOM, OECS, that we're familiar with here in the Caribbean, they're able to hear that this is what the community wants. And it's not just solely like an agenda of a targeted group that maybe only focuses on environment or youth. It's the collective community calling for this change and moving the needle forward.
Right. And earlier, we spoke about a working document that the IHO is releasing. How can civil society engage with it? And why is this kind of transparency so important, and the participation as well?
Yes. So this can be found on our website. We have our repository of everything that we've done for the SIDS 4 conference and afterwards in post-consultation engagement. This is important because we want access to be equal, right? There's equity and power in being able to access these documents and to see the thread of engagements that have taken place. It provides a sense of security and that the information is accessible and you can contribute to it, that it's not this standoff process that you're just being told what is happening. You can actively engage and participate. So these documents can be found in the IHO website under the SIDS 4 area, as well as on our Facebook page. We've shared the links even to day 2, where we had members from various states, as well as the UN resident coordinator who would have shared from the Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean, some very strong comments supporting us here in Antigua and Barbuda and the Caribbean region, as well as Ambassador Webson would have shared as well. So being able to share access to these sites and these videos provides that connection that the local community needs.
Excellent. And finally, after the forum, what comes next for you and the SIDS CSO coalition in keeping that momentum alive?
Yes. So again, in keeping with transparency, we're going to have these debriefing sessions. Media supporting us is one of them as well. So thank you again for sharing the participation that we had in the forum. We'll also engage with the other participants of the forum who attended. We're going to look at how we can have communications drive the information regarding to the implementation of ABBAS, as well as the SIDS CSO coalition and the roadmap and action plan. We're working together right now because there were a lot of interventions that came out across the regions, and so we're developing how we will continue to connect. One way that we will have is a series of webinars hosted by the different regions across SIDS, and it will provide information going forward on how we can continue to connect and engage with some of the really amazing interventions that took place.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Britney. Congratulations to you once again. And, I know that the SIDS Coalition is in good hands and we will have amazing representation at that level.
Thank you so much, Chaneil.
All right. Thank you to Britney once again for bringing clarity, heart, and urgency to this conversation. As a global community looks towards solutions, it's clear that island voices, when united, can help shape a more sustainable and inclusive future for all. Stay with us. There's more Antigua Barbuda today right after this break.